Alright. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lane 6 podcast. Some say that the certain lane was removed from the game along the same time as Herald of Destruction was ruining the servers. I'm your host, Jotto, and along with me this week is my co-host, Hectares.
Hello.
And the return of the first, I guess, third wheel we had on this podcast, Coxatrice.
I'm back! And apparently now Coxy. What are you doing to me, Jotto? Come on, man.
Oh, come on, it was too hard to resist. Anyway, so what have you guys been up to this week? I'll start with Cox.
I have been streaming a lot. I streamed 5 days this week for a minimum of 5 hours each, and it was freaking awesome. Had a great time. A lot of people came along and checked out the stream. Played a bunch of draft near the end, a little bit of constructed at the start, but I've been prepping for WCQ off stream, as you can well imagine. Big news, I've got a 24-hour stream coming up next week, so that'll happen PDT time all day on Wednesday the 15th.
So in other
This
words, it
month.
will be
So
hard to miss.
yeah, basically just come along on any time PDT Wednesday the 15th, and I'll be streaming, probably making tons of misplays, drinking lots of caffeine, and having generally a fun time with it. So come along and check it out, guys. I'd love to see you there.
Heck.
Sounds good. I've been up to a little bit of a mixed bag this week. I've been playing a lot of draft, but on Tuesday night I played some standard constructed in the Tuesday Night Fights tournament hosted by Armada Games, and actually ended up, even though it was a small field, I ended up winning and going undefeated for a two by two $20 gold code prize, top prize on the evening. So I had a pretty fun time, and looking forward to participating in these in the future.
Yeah, I've been up to a lot. Not so much in terms of streaming, because as I said last week when I was doing a lot of streaming, I don't have that much time during the week, but if no one else is streaming, then I'm happy to fill in the time slot. So this week, Coxatrice was back streaming, and if if I'm like busy anyway, I'd rather not pull viewers from Cox just for the sake of trying to fill in a time slot. But it doesn't. I have not moved away though. I'm still working on a lot of stuff, including the Solforge Showdown, which was actually delayed from this week because of time issues, which you'd expect when involving someone from Europe and someone from America trying to make a video. But yeah, we haven't forgotten about it. We're still trying to get it out. It was just a bit complicated this week. But besides that, just been a busy week and been playing a lot of Soulforge off stream, mostly kind of an hour here, an hour there. And I've been playing a lot more of Unlegendary and Standard than normal, I'd say. It's
Yeah,
it's been interesting. We'll talk about it a bit later.
the queues have been full of people in Unlegend compared to the standard.
Yeah.
Unlegend's been sweet. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's a fun format. It really is. Anyway, Hecht, do you want to take over on the news?
Sure. So this winners were announced for Notherian's Creative Tribute to Soulforge Alliance contest, which is basically a bunch of people. I think I mentioned this last episode. A bunch of people submitted some various kinds of tribute to their, Aura Tech, Dizzian, favorite faction combo, and in addition to mono faction. And Notherian sort of evaluated these and put together a short list of the people he thought did the best job representing or giving tribute to their favorite faction. So I posted this link into the chat here. Let me see. So he's awarded some basic prizes to the people who participated. There's some images in there. There's some long form fan fiction. There's some short form like poetry type stuff. Yeah, so there's a good mixture of things. The easiest stuff to consume is sort of the images, sort of wallpaper style images of like various art from within a faction, which is kind of neat. I mean, why wouldn't you write fanfiction about Soulforge? I mean, it's the best game, right?
Kateri made a Vizrak wool poser thing.
I'm really impressed by pretty much everybody contributing to this because it's the kind of thing with limited exposure, not really sure where it's going to go, that kind of thing. But the people who participated end up making something that's interesting for the rest of the community. And shout out to Notherian for putting that contest together.
Have you guys seen the Utera Aloyan tribute thing? It's
Within here.
Future.
the Asperian one up on that link you posted. It's got a level 3 Scrapforge Titan, a level 3 Krogius, a 305 stat level 4 Oros, a Forge Guardian Omega, and a Triggered Aboris on the board.
Huh.
Sounds like a strong board state.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so guys, check that out, and you'll find something in there. It's a good mix of things, so you'll find something you appreciate in there.
That's really awesome.
Moving to our next topic here, in addition to the Tuesday night, since I won the Tuesday Night Fights tournament, obviously I feel like I'm biased toward supporting it, encouraging it, but it was a field of 6 people, so everybody ended up with at least $10 in prize support, like basically automatically by showing up. So until it gets bigger than 8 people, that's going to be the case. So might as well check it out if you're interested.
Was this the paid one?
Yeah, this is a $5 entry fee. It's every Tuesday night. I think they're still going to experiment with the time a little bit based on the turnout. So just if you're interested, the organizer is AG Wizard, but the announcements have been going up on Reddit as well as the Facebook group, and I think they just launched a new Facebook page for easier communication. So basically, stick around the community for that.
So basically what you're saying is free value for those people who sign up when there's few players.
It was basically like a 50% off gold sale for the people who who participated at the bare minimum, and then I turned $5 into $40. Kaitiri came in second, got $20 of gold codes for the $5, so ended up being pretty good value for everybody
that sounds
involved.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good. So I would recommend that, and it's every Tuesday night basically. So you get your Tuesday night Armada Games tournament, you got your Wednesday night casual Soulforge Wednesday, and then throughout the week you've got Kale Cup type entries. So, and I'll mention that because the Kale Cup Championship is coming up. There's one tournament almost immediately after this podcast today, which, Jotto, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit or you want to wait for that.
I'll wait until the end of the news.
Okay, so there's one event coming up, and then there's Monday night is the last chance qualifier to earn an invite to the Kale Cup Championship. So, and that's coming up next Saturday. So, if you're not in it yet, check out the prize support for Kale Cup Championship, and you might decide to make Monday night available.
Just
because
try and get like top 5 in a ladder.
Right.
That might be the easier way of doing it.
So you've got a couple opportunities then, right? You've got this Monday night qualifier, which has a lot of spotlight on it, and then you've got, if you can grind it out, an opportunity to get in through doing well on the ladder in any of the 3 ladders. So that's a good point. Speaking of timely tournament things, there's a World Series qualifier. I don't know if you guys have heard about it this weekend on Legendary format, but the Dex mission is in just over 12 hours, 14 hours, something like that, and the actual time to get your ticket to actually buy into the tournament is in 2 hours, just under 2 hours. So if you're not...
Hang on.
Go buy it.
When do we have to submit our deck lists?
Deck list is in 12 hours from that, I'm pretty sure. It could be 6 or 9 hours. Might want to check on that. If you haven't submitted your deck...
I know what I would be running if I was taking part.
Here's the strategy, guys. First step, buy a ticket if you're planning to do it because you're running out of time for that right now. Second step, when you're on that page, look at how long you have and check your time zone for the actual time and make sure you have a deck ready.
Sorry, guys.
Well, that's my only advice. You don't have to submit your deck list till several hours into the day from here. So at the very least, it's 6 hours from now. Anyway,
right. Well, that's
something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you want to make sure that you get done because it's a real pain in the ass if you miss it and you might not be able to play at all. So you really want to get that done before the deadline. Moving on to...
I was going to say, just a quick note on that one. If you're going to buy gold anyway and you want to play competitive Soulforge, it's worth doing because it's $20 will just get you $20 worth of gold and entry to the tournament. So, it's effectively just free value for those people who are going to buy gold anyway. So, /worth, right?
There you go.
That's right.
In terms of people doing cool stuff in the community this week. I want to give a shout out to Gabo, who got like a 94% win rate in the constructed queue this past week. You know, potentially on the back of a different mix of people being in the queue. So maybe some new faces in the queue, sort of experimenting, or alternatively, just the people that are highly competitive looking out in the for the unlegend queue. And that would be my guess as to a 94% constructed win rate.
To give you an
Otherwise,
idea, guys,
it's deck.
by the way, with the 94, basically that's like one loss every 20 games.
Yeah. Which is, it's doable. It's just incredibly unlikely unless, you know, the person was on consistently up in that 90%.
I think both of us have done 90 before, and that was like insanely high. I've never seen one at 95 before.
And then the good thing, I'll say this, is not only is that, you know, that wasn't done on a 24 game minimum, you know, where you get to take advantage of the variance. I'll give him props for playing it out and continuing to really push that win rate really high. You know, I maybe knocked it down a little bit, but it's no joke to win that many games without dropping any. It's really, really tough to do.
Yeah.
So shout out to Gabo and nicely done. And that's and there's another 90% in the draft leaderboard as well. And it's really impressive when people put these things together, and it's not the same people every week, so you can kind of tell it is really, really tough to do it, and even the best players are only going to do it every once in a while.
Yeah, there isn't the variance is overplayed a lot, but there's enough variance to affect your win percentage by about 10% each time, let's say. But what makes the better players like go apart from the average players, you tend to notice them around 80%, and then every 2-3 weeks or something they go up to 90. And then there's the other measurement of it, which is Techno, who just plays like a million games and always gets to the top of that leaderboard because there's no variance involved in just playing like 200 games a week.
And then in terms of the other upcoming sort of things you could try to specialize in, that kind of thing, the Weekend Warriors have been announced for the 10-10 and the 10-17, October 10th and October 17th start dates. That's today and next Friday for mono faction draft starting today, and then no alpha constructed next week.
We'll cover those a bit more later.
Sounds good, but it's nice to have those announced and sort of start planning out. You know, maybe you are planning to buy some tickets. Maybe you're planning to save up some tickets for either of those events. Especially the no alpha constructed, to have it a week in advance is great. So after that, I think I'll hand it over to you, Jotto, and see what's up next.
All right. So just before we move on to the actual topics, the tournament later today, also known as the Unheroic Showdown, is a one-off Unheroic tournament that I'll be running. I've run tournaments in the past, and I felt as if, well, I might as well just run one. I'm not getting back into regular tournament management, but if you want to play Unheroic, then go ahead, play in that tournament. There are 2 gold codes to give away. One for actually winning the thing, and also one for anyone who just plays all the Swiss rounds and wins off a random roll. So if you want to be in for the kind of giveaway, so to say, just don't drop out and play all the rounds, and you'll have a fairly decent chance, I should imagine, of getting a gold code from Stoneblade. But anyway, so on to our first topic. Now, the first topic we'll be going over is actually what happened in the Kale Cup qualifier for Unlegendary last week. Now, normally we don't cover the Kale Cup lead-in tournaments, but in this case we have an Unlegendary, fairly major tournament, I'd say, tomorrow. So I'm going to bring up the top 4 from that particular tournament, and we'll go over them. Alright, so I actually don't know the exact order of these because I can't see the top 4 bracket. If anyone knows how to do that, then just let me know in chat, and I'll go ahead and look for that. But anyway, so out of the top 4, I think there were 3 NU decks and 1 NT deck, which was largely mono 10-piece. Which, I mean, to be honest, besides the lack of zombies, was not that surprising. There were very, very few people playing zombies in this tournament, and I don't think there was anyone playing an optimized list of zombies.
Yeah.
At all. We saw one list, which I can't remember exactly who played it, but he was playing an Alloyance Splash for 8th Forge Oracle, and by the end of the tournament he actually came in chat saying, yeah, I probably would have done better if I'd tweaked the list a bit. I think zombies is still a deck that a lot of people aren't looking out for at the moment and could still do well. It could win a tournament. It's not the most likely one to do it, but it could do it.
I think that's a good assessment. Zombies has shown itself to be effective. The only problem with zombies is that if people are able to play around it, and if a deck is flexible enough to play around it, then you can end up in a tight spot where you kind of have to get lucky to have your proper card order and somebody else's not proper card order, which is really tough to pull off. You know, it is just unlikely to happen. You have to get your shapers down and get your debuffs early, and then have somebody miss on something like an Etherphage or something like that. So it's one of the tougher ones, I would say. Anyway, but definitely within range.
So we'll be going over these one by one. As I said, don't know the order, so if anyone knows how to access the top 4, then by all means let me know. So the first one we'll be going over is Geothrix, who's from A1. Really do appreciate the team icons, by the way, they're awesome. So this is an NU list, and this is also the most confusing unlegendary NU list I've ever seen. Like I would not have put this list together, I can safely say that. Torg my Guardian.
I like it.
The I Am Groot is strong with this one. Like, really strong.
I love Groot. I just want to take a second here and just say, this deck list plays 3 Groot and a bunch of other plants, and I'm happy.
If you like Groot, play Unheroic. The best deck is playing End of 3 of right now.
Apparently.
That's the Groot format. But this deck, the weird thing about the Groot here is that there are only 5 plants, not including the Guardians. I guess 8 technically that you can banish.
So I've got the list here. Do we want to just read out the list, or have you got it on the stream?
I've got it on.
You've got it there.
I've got it on screen.
Excellent. So, do you mind if I start here? Start with this one.
Go for it.
So, some of my friends who play Solforge, who not on my team, have mentioned to me that they think Groot's really playable with only 9 other plants. That there's enough for him to banish, and this deck proves that basically. The 3 Tangle Sprout, 2 Stygian Lotus, as well as the what's the other? Is there another plant in there?
Stygian Lotuses. Stygian Lotuses.
Yeah, so Stygian Lotus, Tangle Sprout, that's 5. Is there any other plants?
Including the Guardians, 8. But without the Guardians, no.
Okay, so apparently my friend was even wrong about that number. Apparently there's enough to play like 3 Groots, 3 Tangle Sprouts, and 2 Lotus is all you need. So it's a standard NU list playing Groot Queen. Sorry?
It can banish itself, I guess, which is fine if you play it off a tracker. But
well, it's not just fine if you play it off. It's not just fine if you play it off a tracker. If you end up not playing a Groot in 1.1, and then you end up playing a Groot in, say, 1.2 or 1.3, you can banish the Groot. That's actually totally acceptable. You're removing a level 1 from your card from your deck that you're not going to be able to use later on. So, like, it's a standard NU list playing the Brood Queen and trackers. I like the Groot meal tech. I think that's really cool. It's replacing, and instead of Ferocious Roar, which is just crazy. No? Oh, it's in there. Just ignore everything, guys. Just ignore everything.
He's playing 5 Roars.
Yeah, he's effectively playing 5 Roars, which is awesome. So he's obviously trying to grow wide and grow big. And I like that. You know, it's a good strategy, and it's a good deck.
Yeah, I mean, it did score the highest. It was put off a bit by the draw system, which is a problem with best of 3 in general, but it's a kind of a, like, do you want best of 3 where it's more skill based, or do you want to, like, not deal with time limits? I'm fine with best of 3, but time limits are always a problem. Anyway, the rest of the deck is hilariously standard, apart from Weirwood Patriarch being a 2-of, not a 3-of. But the entire shell here, besides the... even Tangle Sprout is pseudo standard. Basically, the differences in this list from normal are 2 Group Meal, 3 Torgmice, and that's about it. And that's the most diverse list.
Well, let's have a look at the next one. What's Katiri playing?
Alright, Katiri is playing another NU deck.
Yep.
He is playing as his tech. First of all, this is something Katiri does a lot. Everything is a 3-of.
Yep.
He loves his 3-ofs. This one is playing 3 Lifebloods. I found 3 Lifebloods to be too much, but I think the card is definitely very powerful. Also, no Lotuses. That could have hurt him in the mirror a bit.
So this list looks pretty standard to me. The Lifeblood Dryad's interesting tech for sure. It's a good deck. I don't know that I like Tangle Sprout as much as some other options, but that's certainly one of the choices you can make. Daisy Siphon represent. Is the first list playing Daisy Siphon? I don't think it is. So that's an notable.
Yeah, that's a replacement. To be honest, like the weird thing is that the first list had to figure out what to take out for Torgmice, so I went for the Daisy Siphons and things like that. Katiri, however, the one thing I do disagree with, which is it's a consistency thing, where he's gone for consistency over sort of what would be best in most situations, which is triple Lifeblood. Like, I found that 1 isn't enough, but 2 is fine. But the main thing is, generally, you can get away with Lifeblood Dryad if you're playing Lotuses. Like,
so, yeah.
I'm interested to see how much he triggered it.
It's gonna be fascinating to see, because there'll be some amount of coverage, I assume, of the World Championship qualifier. It'll be fascinating to see what the finalists end up playing and what the cards that matter are. The Lifeblood Dryads may end up being sweet tech, or you might end up seeing Groot in the finals. I mean, who knows? It's still up in the air, guys. We could even end up seeing is the next deck the Invoker deck? I'm pretty sure it is.
It's the NT one. I think I'll take over on this one because I called it. By the way, I said hey, take out the avatars, try Predators. Hey, look, I was 100% correct. This is the exact mono red list, minus Avatar plus Predators to beat Tracker decks. Which, I mean, Predator is the only way that mono Tempees can beat Tracker decks unless they completely miss their trackers and you get insane draws on Shapers or something. You can't beat Tracker with mono red. Predator, the main weakness of Tracker is actually Predator, which is the kind of thing where Zombies is okay against Tracker, and it's always a coin flip, because it's if a level 2 Predator gets out of hand, then you win, but if it doesn't, then you just get 1-for-1 to death. And the same thing happens with this version of Mono Tempe. So if you actually look at his game history, he beat Katiri, and then he lost to Geothrix, quite handily, I might add. And I think the reason for that is simply because Geothrix was playing a more sort of individual card beatdown thing as opposed to a massive grow wide strategy, which would be pretty bad against Predators.
I don't know that I'm necessarily going to agree with that. I mean, that's probably how the games went, because Geothrix is only playing 2 Stygian Lotuses in the 3 trackers as this grow wide strat. I mean, I suppose Brood Queen counts as well, but often you're sacking the Brood Fang in the Brood Queen decks anyway.
No, he doesn't have a reliance on Lifeblood Dryad. He's playing big, heavy plant hitters instead.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, the Tempest deck playing the Grimwald Predators, a very viable deck in the metagame. I think this is the other really big contender in the WCQ. And, we could see zombies in there. I don't know. My internal testing is not something I'm able to talk about, but certainly, everyone's watching these 3 decks at the moment. And I think this is still a very big contender. You've got all the power to remove all your opponent's creatures, and you can do it even if they grow wide. Maybe it's a bit harder if they ferocious roar, but it's still plausible. It's still there, and you can sometimes stop them from being able to cast the Lifeblood Dryads or their ferocious roars, and that's a very powerful effect to have.
Heck.
I don't have too much to add here. This is these decks are something you might see in. It feels very much like these are the decks that are available because of the unlegendary format. In other words, these are the strongest things you can be doing because they're the general strategies that you can employ without sort of the uniqueness of the legendaries that you can then sort of tailor a deck to. I think that this shows the power that heroics are supposed to bring, which is give you a baseline for a deck without the sort of unique flair. So, for example, if you had Nuada or if you had basically, if you had like wanted to solidify the plant archetype, the Geothrix deck makes for a more robust sort of conceptual deck list. Whereas without it, running more plants than this real minimum number for Torgmai is really hard to do. You don't get that extra value. Then you have to rely on the fact that you're using suboptimal plants, that kind of thing. For something like the NT list or this list with Mono Tempest with Predator, certainly you would normally have access to Doom Rider or Devour or things that you get even more value when you're killing things. So I think what you're seeing is just here are the decks that are sort of nerfed from the standard format, but these are still like what you would try to run in standard. Nothing too special in that front. And then we're just seeing how they stack up against one another now.
I think the major difference between the two formats is actually Tracker. Because Standard I don't think is slow enough to run Tracker. But like, in non-legendary you can get away with it, and that's probably what's triggered Utera to be just ridiculously... Like, it's by far the best faction in unlegendary right now. Aetherphase,
Are you saying
Weirwood, and Tracker. And Roar.
I'm not going to necessarily agree with that, Jotto. I think that Predator is still like Predator, Necreum in general is still a very powerful, faction powerful cards. Maybe Utera is the most powerful, but then again, Necreum has seen a lot of powerful things as well. And the decks that we're looking at here wouldn't be the decks that they are without the Necreum as well. Like Brood Queen's a Necreum card, Siphon's a Necreum card. Even Group Meal and Zithian Dihound. Those things are very, very powerful effects.
Well, Necreum is the other most powerful faction. It's better in Standard, I'll definitely agree with that. And also in non-heroic. The reason I say Utera is kind of the engine behind it at the moment, which is... It's interesting how in Standard it tends to be Necreum powers the deck, largely because you've got access to things like, Pact and the legendary Grimgaunts. Whereas in unlegendary, it's often Utera that does, because you need the count for trackers. Like, missing a trigger on a tracker is just miserable. But I think that's what puts it over the top, personally. But anyway, as for the last list in the top 4, this is one which confused me a lot, but I think that's probably why I won so many games, because no one had any idea what they were playing against. This is one of the weirder ones I've seen from this archetype. 3 Branchweaver Druids, a random Lysian Shard, we've got a Savage Oath in there. All we're missing is a couple of Seal of Deepwoods.
2 Swamp Moss Lurker as well, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
Dinosaurs represent!
Pac-Man
just like... yeah, that's it. Pac-Man Ninja. One of the cool things about Unlegendary as a format, I think Hectares just touched on it, is that you get the solidness of the heroic cards without the flair of the legendary. So what you find is that these are kind of the meat and veggies of your Solforge experience. The garnish, the sauce, that lovely extra thing that makes it that spicy, wonderful meal that you went and paid $50 at that super nice restaurant for. Those are the legendaries. But this is like, hearty, solid Solforge that we're getting here. And it really, with unheroic, for example, you feel like you're playing with underpowered cards. But with unlegendary, you feel like you're playing with real Solforge cards. You're having real effects on the game. And I love this kind of, heroics are the nuts and bolts that hold Solforge together, and legendaries are just kind of that extra bit on top. I love it. It's fantastic. It's a great format to play.
Food analogies on top of mechanics.
Hey,
Only
I gotta go where
six.
my I gotta go where my mind tells me to go, man. What I gotta do?
Heck, anything to add before we move on?
No, we're seeing a lot of this Utera. I like this name Uterror. That's cute. This and you. I mean, we're seeing a lot of Utera. I think we'll keep seeing a lot of Utera. I think we'll see a lot of Tempest, Tempest Burn, and I think it will be really. I think we'll get some really exciting games out of it for the World Championships. That's that's the only thing I have to add.
I didn't even see the Uterror.
Yeah. The deck names are all good. Criteria was on playing not an obvious deck at all.
Yeah, I saw that.
Jotto is on the much more obvious, much more straightforward NU Tracker BQ. I mean, BQ Tracker is what I've been hearing it called. Like, this is a deck people like to play.
Yeah, it's just like, well, we want to run Tracker, we want to run Necrim in general. Hey, look, Dizzy and Siphon and Brood Queen are both in that color combination. Hey, I have a Brood Queen that never misses the trigger. That is one advantage of Brood Queen and non-legendaries versus standard. I've almost never missed a allied trigger.
Yeah.
Like, unless I made some stupid mistake. Because there's like not enough Necrim cards in the deck to cause that.
Those stupid mistakes though, man. Ah, man.
Yeah.
Those Tiny Grimes mistakes make everyone sad.
The Tiny Grimes mistakes. Shots fired.
No, that's what my stream kept calling them. I was like, I thought this was a convention. Like an actual thing the Solforge community has. Alright, I'm just wrong. Sorry, Tiny Grimes, if you're out there. I didn't mean to make it your thing. It's definitely my thing as well, don't worry.
What we're gonna call it, like, I don't know, the Coxatrice misplays?
The Coxatrice misplays.
The Coxatrice
those
mischievous
misplays.
band of misplays.
We could just call them Cox plays. You know, whatever. Doesn't bother me.
I don't know, we need to coin a term for Hectares. Something to do with real estate would help.
Hydras? Somebody say something about Hydras?
You have real estate with Hydras? What the hell?
I don't know.
We still need a legendary Hydra at some point.
We have a legendary Hydra. We
A
need
good one.
A Hydra. I think we need a Utera Hydra. I think we need it to be very, very powerful.
Hydra Thunder Sword.
I think what we need is a robot Hydra.
No. What we need is considering all the random Marvel stuff's been going on recently, we need a legendary Hydra with an alternate art that is something to do with the Hydra organization.
Yep, I think so.
Just has to be. It's
That's
somewhere.
amazing.
Like
Steel
That's
Hydra.
fantastic.
yeah, that has to happen at some point.
And if we make this Hydra have mobility, then even I can love it.
It has to have something to do with if you cut off one head, you get two more. That's actually something we're missing with Hydras. Have you noticed?
Yeah.
There are no Hydras that duplicate something.
That actually would have been in the game if I won the invitational.
Damn it.
I know.
Like
I
their
feel really
main
bad
thing.
because this Hydra would exist.
That's their main
would have
thing
been
in
set 5.
Magic. That's something that they do in Magic a lot, is they double. But in freaking Solforge, just like, no, it regenerates. It's like, yeah, but it's supposed to double itself, man.
You know, I would guess that there's going to be some... When new technology comes into the game, like new mechanics come into the game, but not new mechanics necessarily for us, but new mechanics for the card designers to use. This was something that John Fiorillo talked about on when he was doing the card design within AT, the Oratech Warhammer. And that card was designed by the community. And in the process of designing that card, he talked about how he's got all these card ideas he wants to make, but he can't because the technology, he doesn't have the tech internally to then go and do it. So I think some kind of tech that said, when this card dies, spawn 2 new tokens from it, or 3 tokens from it would be great. Something to look forward to, kind of thing.
Alright, so moving on to the Weekend Warriors.
Oh yeah.
We've got 2 coming up. We've got Mono Faction Draft, and then we have that's this weekend. And then we've got No Alpha, so set 2 and 3 only, constructed a week from now. Now, I'm just going to go to each one of you and say which one are you looking forward to most and why, and is there anything you don't like about the 2? So we'll start with Hecht.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that.
Oh my god. Alright. Which one of the 2 are you looking forward to the most?
Of what? 2 of what? The Weekend Warriors?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the one that I haven't tried before, no alpha. I mean, the other one I've tried before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the this is one is a rerun, and the other one is brand new. So I got to go with the brand new one.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm also going for the mono faction draft, even though I've never seen no alpha before. And the reason for it is because you take the Soulforge metagame right now. And what you do is you get rid of Gox, and you get rid of Energy Surge, and then you get rid of like most of the 10-piece burn and some Flame Shapers. What are you left with? Aetherphages, Brood Queens, like Group Meal to replace Roar, Stygian Lotuses, some nice underdrops. It's actually worse.
Yeah, I think you might be right. This is so I've heard some other members of the community sort of saying this is going to be a very interesting format. This is going to be something that is highly diverse because of the number of decks that are affected by the cards missing. And I'm not convinced. I think it might go the other way. I think it might condense around whatever the strongest of the things that they're already familiar with building ends up being. And you know what? I think it's going to be the Brood Queen list, as you suggest.
Maybe Track will make it in. Tangle Sprout is a Rise of the Forgeborn card, right? Yeah, it is.
Who knows? Groot might make his appearance as number one rare in Solforge.
You never know.
What's possible is that there is another deck that's out there that with a slightly weaker version of Brood Queen, with a slightly weaker version, or extremely weakened version of the leveling type deck, you're going to have this other option that emerges maybe as strong. But will people find it in the Weekend Warrior time? That's the question. I think that's why it's great that they gave the extra week there for the no alpha constructed.
The problem is that like everything's getting weaker, obviously, because alpha's gone. But I think the funny thing is a lot of people saying they're trying to theorize about new decks that are not Brood Queen. Yeah, that may come across, but I guarantee it's going to be NU. Because like weirdly enough, the two factions that lose the most from no alpha are Aloyan, which has been vastly powered down since alpha. Like vastly, almost all of their uber powerful cards are in alpha, and 10 pieces missing like most of its stuff besides like Rage of Kadras, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but Rage of Kadras is very strong, so it's possible that there's a Rage of Kadras deck out there. You Terra Chicken or whatever, you Terra Chicken Pump deck.
No Thundersaur.
No Thundersaur.
That's so real.
No Patriarch. But I mean, you do have Rage of Kadras, which is extremely strong. So it's a question of, do people have that card? Maybe not.
Ironbeard, and like Killian with Iron Maiden, and some way of never drawing them.
Doesn't forging come active before this set alpha thing?
No.
Forging of the 3.1 stuff?
Yeah.
Does it?
I don't know.
I think it might. I don't keep track of these things because I'm a paying player, so I don't know. But I'll check it. What we should also realize, guys, is that the mono faction draft is full of Aloyan, and we'll all be Aloyan, and we're all going to draft Aloyan, and it's going to be fantastic. So
is it just current draft in monocolor, or is it everything?
No, it's every color, so you can draft whatever color you want.
You face off against somebody who's also monofaction, but
I mean, what's the card pool? Is it every card ever, or is it just current draft pool?
That is a good question.
So that's fairly important.
Yeah, the last time they did a special draft like format, it was including every faction. So people are theorizing every set. So people are theorizing that it'll be the same with every set, and I think that's probably fair because it doesn't strip the if you add the alpha cards in, you're not losing like that much in terms of a restricted card pool. You're actually losing cards in general because you're only drafting a quarter of the available cards and it just sets 2 and 3, which means if you add alpha, you're actually drafting with 2/3 of the available cards you would otherwise be drafting if you were doing a normal draft.
But alpha makes the draft pool miserable. Last time they included alpha in a draft pool, people started complaining that they were getting killed by set 1 things that they've been trying to desperately forget about. Mostly predators and battle attacks.
Maybe Necri would be really good.
And roars.
I think I remember them releasing statistics related to the monofaction draft the last time they ran this thing, and from what I remember,
Was Allion dominant?
it wasn't one faction in particular having a significantly higher win rate than any other faction, monofaction, which I thought was really interesting and not what I expected. I think for the reason you just said, which is people were sort of concerned about BattleTech and GGP just sort of dominating easily
Yeah.
some games. So, but I think if every faction has that one card or one sort of combination of cards that they can do something special with, that keeps all the factions even.
I'm a bit worried
Yeah.
about some of the influx of things because Aloyan and Utera were traditionally the strongest colors in set 1 for draft, and since then, like if Aloyan gets its power commons back, which for any of you guys who didn't play back then, Aloyan was arguably the strongest color in draft in set 1 because of the power commons, which were forge plates, sentries. I'm talking about the 15/15 with 5 armor. And Technosmith was really good. And you also had things like Nexus Pilot, which people forget about because whenever you got a Battletech, you didn't pick it because you just never wanted to have a feel-bad Battletech. But that thing was really hard to stop. Like if they had initiative and they played a level 3 one in lane 3, it was kind of like trying to stop a beta level 3 or something on par. Not to mention that very few things could kill it at the time because creature sizes got bigger over time, in draft at least. So there's a lot of weird cards that come back into the pool, and it did. I'm just saying that last time all 3 sets were in the same draft format, it was not a good thing. So I'm a little sketchy if that's actually what's going on. Although we don't know. We do not know. It would be nice to know, though.
So I actually think it's going to be really fun. I hope they bring back the alpha cards. I really want to draft with some of those old alpha cards. The Aloyan I think is going to be really, really fun to play. I really like Ionic War Charger. Sorry, it's a great card. But I'll probably be drafting this as well. War Charger is really good. Also, we just had him just confirm that set 3.1 is forgeable on October the 22nd, which means the next Weekend Warrior will be just before the cards are forgeable. I think. Is that right, Hectares? I should be right.
Yeah, it will end before. It will end before.
Before the standard portion of the Kale Cup. That's all I remember. So you'll be able to carve before standard for Kale Cup. I just remember that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So yeah, you will. It might be restricted a little bit by that. But that being said, no alpha constructed. But it's only 7 cards that you don't have access to potentially, so it's probably not going to be that bad. And there's plenty of time between now and then to draft them and to open them in packs. So I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to the queues, to be honest.
I'm just going to turn on my light because my camera's starting to get laggy.
So there's a little bit of chat going on at the moment where people are talking about the 4-faction draft. Massive Mark said he enjoyed it, and Pac-Man was making the point that not necessarily everyone did. That's actually a really good point. All of these Weekend Warriors, Stoneblade has already said that they're taking a lot of data from them. They're trying to figure out what people enjoy, which ones are popular, and then they've said they're going to repeat some of them, and they might run other tournaments as well. The Unlegendary WCQ is a great example of that. So it means like the ones that are most popular probably might happen again, or we might get other events. So vote with your wallet, guys. Vote with your ticks.
The resident Stoneblade Entertainment guy of the stream normally, David, has come on and is saying that it will only be set 2 and 3, which I am rejoicing about.
Oh.
I'm happy about this. But yeah, something just to mention. The 4-faction draft, I think I do remember a lot of people only playing 1 or 2 and then just stopping. And the other thing I remember was there was a huge amount of backlash about set 1 being in that Weekend Warrior. Like Reddit and the forums were basically full with it for 3 days, which is pretty
fair.
uncommon. So
did
that's,
he put that
that's
in
where I'm
the
getting
info?
that from.
He's saying he put it in the info.
Read the blurb. What's the blurb?
He might mean in the article.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just having a look at that.
So, It's official. An article is a blurb, according to Snowblade.
For separate you choose from, you'll be only presenting cash. It's not in the article, David. It's not in the article.
It's all right. It's all right.
Yeah,
We know now.
we do know now. That's right.
All right.
So what's next, Jotto? You're emceeing this.
I'm just reading through this to make sure. Yeah, it wasn't in there, but that's perfectly fine. Anyway, so the last topic we're going to be going over. It's a bit of a shorter show since I do have a tournament to be running in about 2 hours. We'll be going over, well, metagame. Mostly sort of the aftermath. That now it's been a couple of weeks since the last patch. So I would say that every format has stabilized to some regard. We don't have like a tournament to actually really go off for at least a big one to go off for all the formats yet, but it's pretty solid, and I'm not really sure how this turned out, and I've got a feeling it's got something to do with something that begins with an A and an E and ends with rage. But it's turned out that almost the entire formats, and I say formats plural because it includes all of them, has turned into NU. Now, what do I mean by this? The first one is Unheroic has become about 90 to 95% NU, and I'm actually not joking. I've played against one non-NU Unheroic deck in the last 45 games.
What is this in the ladder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is insane.
That's got to be the power of the bound cards, right? Shardbound
It is.
Shardbound Invoker and Ebonbound Warlord are just so good in Unheroic.
Direhound, and then you just banish everything. It's like, hey, bound, and you just kill them. But so that's completely destroyed everything. So Unheroic is one of those formats where it's like, you play it if you don't mind just dipping into it every so often, but it's a pretty miserable format to specialize in at the moment, I'd say. Unlegendary is between Burn and Tracker, and at the moment I'd say Tracker is winning that war currently. Like, Tracker Brood Queen is winning because Burn can lose to other decks, whereas Tracker has a habit of not losing to any other archetype besides Tracker and Burn. So that started around 50-50 at the beginning of the week, and now I'd say it's going to about 70-30 from what I've played against at least. So that's also going the way of NU. And the funny thing is, they're all for different card reasons. Like in Unheroic, it's the bound cards. In Unlegendary, it's Tracker and Brood Queen. Then in Standard, it's mostly like Nephrax, Doom Rider, Pact, Brood Queen, Aetherphage. Aetherphage as well in Unlegendary, by the way, because you can just rip people's hands apart. Which actually shows up more in Unlegendary than in Standard, I'd say. But just simply because Burn deck, like the Burn deck is an actual contender a lot of the time, whereas in Standard it's kind of a fringe thing. So Aetherphage is even more powerful than it could be, because the Gox deck, I've noticed, the AT Gox deck that everyone was hyping up after the World Qualifiers, that was doing fine, and then it slowly died off. It's still kind of around, but I haven't played against one in a while. And by a while I mean 3 days, and I generally play a queue a day.
Alright, well...
So I'm not quite sure what's going on there.
I don't have too much to add to a sort of conversation on this, other than when you start to... You'll see this, I think, in a lot of games where you have a streamer who is promoting a certain archetype. You'll see it when tournament leaderboards come out, that kind of thing. And some deck is, doing really well, and other people try it out and copy it. If they find success with it, if they see something that somebody else was doing that was successful, and they try it and they find success with it, it just propagates. It just goes, okay, this NU thing was really good, or I just lost to this NU thing a few times, let me try it, and then they win with it. That just converts them. So I think what happens is people aren't showing off the power of enough other decks to have them propagate other decks. And if that's because those other decks aren't as powerful and that's what's doing it, it's hard for me to know that, as a player. It's hard for me to know that, so I just go easily with what sort of works, because I'd rather win and get my tickets back, or I'd rather win and have some success on a ladder than sort of lose and struggle through. And I think it depends what kind of player you are, whether you make that decision or you like continue to struggle through and say, I would rather take down this deck. So let me keep making the game about taking down this deck. And there's only so many people that are willing to, that prefer that playstyle, and I think we need more people doing that.
I think most of the people that have been trying to do that have given up, and I think the reason for it is because at least in standard, like in unlegendary, it's literally come down to there are counter decks, but sometimes the effects that you're trying to counter are just too powerful to actually stop. Like zombies can sometimes hold a grip on tracker lists for a while, but then if they stumble for one turn, they die. So that happens a lot. But in standard, it seems to have got to a point where it's very difficult, and I don't know of a list that has a greater than 50% win rate against Brood Queen, because you can't attack it from one angle. There is no one angle. Like, the deck protects itself against the counters. That's why I think, like, between Brood Queen, Aetherphage, and like Doom Rider makes those cards better. But between those three cards, they literally have a protection strategy against almost every angle you can approach the deck from. Which I think is something which has resulted in... It's resulted in, like... It kind of reminds me of the Coldblade format, where the reason that deck was so good was you could beat it with other decks, but that only started happening once they started, like, focusing more on teching for the mirror. So they just were dropping all the stuff that was decent against aggro decks and things like that could punish them. But then as soon as that happened once or twice, it just reverted back to where it was, and the lock came back.
Just to clarify for those non-Magic players out there, the Coreblade format is a format of Magic Gathering. So he's talking about one deck being dominant entirely, like he's claiming Brood Queen is. So just wanted to make that clarification, because Coreblade isn't a Solforge thing.
Yeah, but it's something a lot of people do know about.
That's completely fair.
But yeah, thanks for the clarification. Anyway, yeah, what were you going to say?
So the other thing I was going to say is I'm kind of down the middle of the road here. Like, I hear what you're saying about the most powerful thing being NU or Brood Queen or whatever you want to call it, and I also hear Hectares saying basically we need more people to brew and less people to net deck. I like net decking. I net deck a fair bit. I tend to take a net deck and then tweak it and try and make it better, but I also try and do a bunch of brewing. I'm not a great brewer personally. That's not where my skills lie. I'm somewhat better at taking an existing deck and playing it. But I think there's a lot of room in Solforge for all kinds of activity. Net decking is fine. Brewing is totally fine too. And that's why we have a diverse metagame, and we can have a diverse metagame. If there isn't a diverse metagame, then it's after a few months, obviously, initially you're going to have probably one deck be dominant. But after a few months, you'll probably find that metagame can't be diverse because something is too powerful. All I say here is let time decide. If the winning deck at the WCQ is, NU, Brood Queen, blah, 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 then yeah, maybe the deck is dominant. But until that happens, until the highest level of the game's been played, I don't want to cast, my dice in with one lot and say this is it. So
yeah, I don't think it's it.
Just another.
It's like, I think this has been popping up a bit more in this week, which is the reason I wanted to bring it up. Especially on the forums and Reddit, where it disappeared for a while when 3.1 came out. And then it seems to have come back because when 3.1 came out, because the the Forge Watch Invitational had some AT decks and like some NT and things like that in top 16. A lot of people were trying out those things, but it seems that over time they've realized that what they thought was a good win rate was actually just like outplaying, and then like, alright, let's try Brood Queen again, and then the win percentage just went up. And that seems to have been happening to more and more people. It happened to me as well. Like, I was playing Mono 10-piece with Rage of Hectares and things like that, and that was doing quite well. It was like 3-1 infinite type thing. Wasn't getting that many 4-0s. I switched back to NU, and now I'm back to exactly where I was before the change, which was like 4-0, 3-1, 3-1, 4-0, 3-1, 4. Like that was a case where it seems that more and more people have been doing this. So over the last couple of weeks, I've been noticing less and less of non-NU, and more of like back to where we were before 3.1, which is kind of annoying.
Only thing I can say about this is once people have learned an archetype and know how to play it, and they're basically building a mastery with that playstyle. And it's the kind of thing where if the archetype is the same and you just have to tweak 1 or 2 cards to improve it for the current metagame, you're dealing with a very, very strong sort of persistent playstyle. Where if enough changes in the metagame where that archetype is no longer really viable, in other words, for example, I was playing AU Flex quite a bit, and it sort of got other things got enough tactics that it made that whole archetype very hard to play because the removal was better, removal packages were better from other decks, and that because of that, shutting down that playstyle, I wasn't able to just like tweak 1 or 2 cards. So I think for people who are able to just tweak 1 or 2 cards, if an archetype is strong enough to persist through metagame changes like that, or card pool changes like that, it can be players that are familiar with it persisting because they're having success with it because they're familiar with it. So it's a bit tough to judge how a card pool change impacts the metagame if people return to that same deck quickly.
I mean, I do think that. I do think that it's a bit of a case of where they nerfed the really broken thing. Like Brood Queen was really, really broken. I think we all realize that it did too much. But what seems to be happening right now is that the rest of the NU engine, which has sort of become one deck over time, seems to just have a habit of stopping counter decks. Mostly like the burn deck, which Kateri was running a lot, like Pact Burn and things like that. That was really, really good against NU. Like you would flatten them until they drew 3 Aetherphages in a row, and then you instantly lost. And it was just things like that, and it's one of those things where I feel maybe Brood Queen. I think Brood Queen would have been nerfed eventually anyway, but I'm tempted to say at this point that maybe it was the wrong call. I think maybe it would have been better to discourage the faction pairing, as opposed to trying to weaken what made like those two factions just go straight together. Because I've got a feeling that no matter like they could nerf like Dizzian spells into Oblivion, and then the two factions would just split and just make whatever deck they go into like absolutely absurd. Because I think between Aetherphage, like Aetherphage locks out control decks at the moment, and you never get punished for it because it's a 7/5 that gets bigger.
Think about this, right? Like think about Aetherphage being a Tempest card or an Aloyan card. How does the metagame shift?
Well, I think that card, no matter which faction it would be in, would shift the metagame towards that faction.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think there's something interesting to be said for the fact that Utera has this, and that NU has picked up a lot of strong cards in a very short period of time. Maybe to the point of being the oppressive faction alliance kind of thing.
I think they just picked up too much stuff at once.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's what happened. They got I want to say the best heroics and legendaries out of set 3. Nephrax, Doom Rider, Aetherphage, Brood Queen. They also got Dizzy and Siphon out of that set. Dire Hound, the best level 1 creature I hope they ever make. If you make a better level 1 Overload creature than Dire Hound, then that is just wrong. By the way,
it's possible that confluence of different cards coming together that are, first of all, very strong independently, but secondly, have very tight synergy as a group of cards coming in. That's probably what has skewed things so much toward NU.
It is kind of funny how we went from gnomes to this.
So, do we have a little bit of time? Because I have a little bit of theory crafting I'd like to talk about for about 5 minutes.
Go for it.
So basically, before the stream I was mentioning to Jotto and Hectares how solforge has 4 factions, and that means it has really only 6 faction combinations, and then of course you can play the 4 factions as mono factions if you want. Which means in any given metagame, you're going to have a situation where because of the lack of faction diversity, or not lack of faction diversity, but because there's only 4 of them basically, you're going to have a higher concentration of quality cards in one particular faction, which means that there's a higher chance that you'll have a metagame that's dominated by one faction combination than, say, if you had 5 different factions and those factions made a group of 10 different pairings. Now, that's not necessarily what's happening here, but I do just want to quickly point out the solforge has a difficult time of it balancing itself. It's got to balance aggro versus long game strategies. It's got to balance the fact that you play 2 cards every turn and there's no resource system, and it's got to balance the fact that it's got 4 factions and no more than that. And I personally, like I've said before, don't think that there's one faction combination better than any other in any given metagame. That most of the time a game of solforge will anyway come down to player skill, and that who knows what we're going to see at the WCQ, and who knows what we're going to see in future formats. Potentially, we'll go from gnomes to this to the next broken thing, and we'll have, completely busted up metagames, but potentially we won't. And basically, all I'm saying here is it's still a new game. It's still in beta, and they're still balancing things. Free is a powerful mechanic, and there are a bunch of other things going on there as well. Brood Queen gives you free removal, but it comes at the cost of playing a 2/6 in your deck. So, Patriarch helps with that. There's a confluence of factors here, and I don't think it can be pinned down to one card. And just as a personal gripe, I don't think Aetherphage is that busted. It's the only card that has its effect, and that's a powerful effect, sure. But
that was why I phrased it
busted.
that way. That's why I phrased it that way. I said, what if you moved it to a different faction? Because I think that's what we're talking about, is that it's only one. It's the only one that can do it.
The problem with Aetherphage is not it being busted, by the way. The problem with Aetherphage is the fact that the faction pairing it's in has a singular weakness, which is Invoker. And Aetherphage literally kills that deck.
I think all these things tie together, right? You have NU, which is strong. Then you give it extra tools, and then you give it a tool that specifically handles what seems to be the card set that was added to sort of not shore up, but strengthen AT, the Auratech, Explosive, all these things. Is very spell reliant. So you give the thing about spells is the timing of them is really tough to pull off. So if your spell that you are counting on reversing the board state, fixing things for you, pushing you ahead, capitalizing on your current momentum, you need to and it gets pulled from your hand. Or you get like part of your combo pulled from your hand and you only get like half of the value. It really, really affects a game. It can be the single play that wins a game just in terms of timing. So I think that's really tough.
The other weird thing about Aetherphage, and this is one which I think most people have sort of stated, is that the effect itself I think is fine in the game, and it'll show up more. Not exactly the same, but like something similar. I think the main problem with it is that, unlike something like Oxidon Spitter or things like that, which they punish you for having a strong effect by having a weaker body, Aetherphage will literally beat your skull in. Like, even if it pulls nothing. The level 1 is a 7/5, which I might add does not trade with most things. The level 2 is an 11/9, and the level 3 is literally one of the largest single 3s in competitive Solforge. Like, it's an 18/15. That is huge. That trades with a level 3 Ebon Skull, guys. Like, that is absolutely crazy. It's definitely... I think maybe it was a combination of both, because it's the kind of thing where the body means you don't get punished for playing it as a 3-of. And when you don't need it, it's a 7/5 beat stick, and it's a very good underdrop. And when you do need it in certain matchups, it's just like, hey look, you're playing an AoE deck. It's a shame you can't AoE anything.
In a lot of ways, it's something you want to be playing when you need it. Sometimes you're playing it when you don't need it, and it's just that body. You get the body, and you get an added upside of the pull a spell. right? Because the body is big enough to serve as an underdrop, because it's big enough to play on level, you can get this extra value, or you can use that as its primary purpose. But you get the options. It's a very flexible card, much like a lot of the other plays in NU right now.
Yeah, it's true. I just think that maybe I think it's just bad timing. It's like NU at its strongest got a card that stops AoE at the right time. Like I think Aetherphage in set 2, I want to say, like either in set 2 or like a couple metagames from now, would probably be fine. Because it wouldn't be paired with a deck that literally just like has its singular weakness. But the other thing that I think is maybe a little too overtweaked right now is Direhound. I've just been picking this up in chat, and a valid question actually. At what point, like if you tweaked Direhound's numbers, at what point would you just stop playing it?
Are you asking us?
Yeah, just in general, because I think I'd probably like -4, -4, and 4/4. I still play. Not as a 3-off, but I still play.
So 9, like the total effect right now is a 10/10. It's a 5/5 with a -5/-5 trigger. It's probably still playable at 5/5/4/4. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But it's probably unplayable at 8, like you just said. -4, -4. Or
Yeah, I think
like it needs to trade with a level 2, and it does that at 10/10. And it also affects multiple lanes, and it also shrinks attack. So
and it eats 9/10s.
yeah, and it eats 9/10s. So like a 9/9 Zithian Direhound is borderline, and I potentially wouldn't end up running it at all. No, like it's so hard to know because I don't actually have the card in front of me and I can't play it in a game of Solforge. But I would probably posit a statement. I think it's probably unplayable at 9/9. Like the total effect being 9/9.
Yeah,
That's just what I'm gonna.
I think I'd still play it at 9/9, especially in Unheroic and on Legendary. I think you still play it at 9/9. In Unheroic at 8/8. But in Standard, I still think 10/10 is too powerful. But 9/9 I think would probably be balanced because it is like I think the funny thing is I think this just shows like how spoiled competitive Soulforge players are. By the way, like Burnout is a perfectly playable card. And we're literally talking about Direhound being like maybe okay at 9/9 stat swing.
So
I just find that amusing.
Burnout's a spell. Direhound affects 2 lanes. Maybe I'm wrong here. Like the total effect 5/5 -4 -4 might be still really good.
I follow your logic though.
But yeah, being able to trade it for a level 2 is super important. And I think the Direhound is just like the other Overload cards, not busted. I think the cards are good, sure, but they definitely have a cost to your late game, and that cost is real. So, I think it's totally fine.
It's still busted in one form. Like, it's beyond busted in Unheroic. Like, it actually is just straight up broken in that format. But,
yeah,
Banish in general is broken in that format.
I think it's a good question, but
Unheroic.
it's not something that we know without testing it.
Exactly.
It's something that really needs to be tested because unless you're getting those actual range of plays, it's going to be very fine balance. And I think it comes back to that same thing. Right now, you get a lot of extra value from having this token hit the board because you get to play it and then sack it. And the 5/5 is your 5/5 play, and then the token is your free sacrifice. So that's another case where the NU faction pairing is really strong in that you're getting the token for free, basically.
Sorry, I've just been reading chat and I just came across they should buff Elysian Shard to give a 4/4 along with it.
Nice.
I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but
well, that gets back to
that
gets back to the same conversation of Seal of Deepwood being, is an 18/18 buff way stronger than playing an 18/18. So
yeah.
I think you can't just go with a linear like, oh, it gives a 4/4 because it's 10/10.
It doesn't quite work that way, but it's a funny way of putting it.
Yeah.
I mean, Lysian Shard is nowhere near as good as Ithia Direhound. I think most people can agree with that one, but I think the card still has its place. I think all the Overload cards, I would say that out of, if you notice that there were two, I say there was a cycle in Secrets of Solus for Varus, which is the Overloads. Then there were two for commons, the Bound cards and the Seals. It's kind of weird how this went. The Bound cards, I would say, were an absolute success. Two of them being too good, one of them being perfectly balanced, and the other one not being good enough. Which was Invoker and Evanbound have their own format, which they love treating as a playground. Cinderbound, I'd say, is a perfectly balanced card, and Ironbound is kind of the Aloyan brother, which doesn't do much. Which is funny if you think about it. But
I've won draft games with the gnomes. They're fine. They're not great, but they're still solid cards to play.
I like my broken commons, okay?
Okay.
As for the Seals, Rage of Cardross was awesome. Seal of Cardross was a fail. Remember how much hype was around that card? It's like, it does 25 damage! It's consistent!
Yeah, there was a good amount at the beginning of it.
And then it did absolutely nothing. Actually, no, it did do something. Mostly people trying to break it and failing.
Well, I think that's something that will have to be revisited, right? If like people were excited about it, hyped to try and break it, and then we get some more support that levels some spells. Let's say we get the Killian effect or the Killian target a discarded card effect. You know, taking an L1 Seal of Kadras that happens to be in your deck and then pulling it up to L3 right before the rank up to L3 would be very, very powerful.
I played it with Iron Maiden as my other win condition, because it can be used as removal if I'm playing against like a deck I need it against, like Dragon decks. It was okay. Wasn't amazing. It was fine. But yeah. Anything from you, Cox, before we move on to the other seals?
I'm a little sad that Aloyan got a little less powerful cards, and I mean, other than that, I'm not really that fussed.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I've lost games to both Ironbound reinforcements and to the Aloyan Seal, Pact of Anvalon, I think.
The bad deep one.
Yeah, I've lost games to that. So you know, I can't sit here and say the card's terrible, at least in draft. And I think those cards were originally designed and balanced for draft. And they do
is,
really
Ironbound,
good.
By the way, Ironbound is not a bad card. It's just not as good as the other ones. I think it's a better way of putting it.
Yeah. The bound cards are all really good picks in draft. And like, if you're looking at that format specifically, they're all really good and really powerful. And the gnomes seem, happy to be the weakest. So yeah, there has to be a weakest card. I don't hate it.
I agree.
I think it's fine.
I think the bound cards were all a success, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they were a success. Absolutely.
The seals, not so much. There was, I think Dead on Board had an article about this a while ago, but Seal of Tarsus, I'd say, was the balanced one. That one was not, it was never too powerful, because if you're not in a situation where you absolutely need a minus, it just doesn't do anything. You can't just play it out. So Tarsus always felt like a fairly balanced one. Anvalon was like really cool until people saw Seal of Deepwood. I don't know what happened there, guys. Like, it was even worse. The funniest thing was, nowadays, Seal is 1/6/18, and Anvalon is 3/10/20. The funny thing is, when Secrets of Solus was released, I don't know how this happened, but you've got two cards side by side. One of them buffs attack and goes 3/10/20. The other one buffs buffs health and attack, and goes 1/1 9/9 18/18. So what we have learnt today is that 2 attack is worth 18 life, and 1 attack is worth 9. At least it's a consistent rate.
Yeah.
I still don't know how that happened, but in all honesty, like Seal, I think Seal is still causing waves. It's nowhere near as overpowered as it used to be, but it's still causing waves in draft. But it's one of those things where they were really good ideas. The problem is putting like a consistent pump spell is busted, and a consistent plus attack no one really cares about, and a consistent burn spell that like scales.
I think something like leveling it for free was considered part of that equation. So if you've got the ability to take an Aloyan spell and play. Let's say you've got Apocrymancer on the board and you play Seal, so you get to level something else, or you play the Forge Oracle and you level the Seal.
Yeah, that's true.
Those things have to be considered. It brings up, the question of how do you manage the card pool as it grows? How do you make sure to balance around not just what you intend in this set, but what you're planning for in the next set? And how do you communicate that to the players in such a way that they don't, basically whine every time a new card comes out that feels strong, that takes over a format. That's what we're dealing with right now, I think, is we've had a few sets in a row where we're getting transitioning card pools, and then the player base latches on to a particular card being seemingly way too strong. But, it's really tough to judge because the card pool is changing frequently.
Yeah.
So we don't know if it's really strong, if it's too strong, or if it's just strong, but it won't be that strong in a month, or it won't be that strong in 2 months.
Yeah, something interesting to know, actually. Sorry, it's just... never mind, I'll mention it after the 3.1 stuff, because I want to go over that quickly as well. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love it when Hecht says something basically all the time. I just sit here and go, I either agree with you, Hecht, or I think that was really well said. Like,
yeah,
congrats, man. That was awesome. Really good points.
He has a lot of vocal real estate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No mincing of the words from the Hectares. I mince my words. I say things. They're all, things that I say. But Hectares has got the points.
I just say what I'm thinking, and people listen to it.
Hey guys.
Anyway, so those are the 3 cycles in Secrets, and then there was 3.1, which we went over this when it came out, but it was like, in hindsight, Tomb Pillager was balanced, besides the random unintentional interactions. But Tomb Pillager was a cool card. Then you got Tracker, which was too good in one format, but only in one format. Well, actually, not 2, Draft as well. But the main point was that it's fine in Standard, and people might play it, people might not, things like that. Flame Sculptor, I'd say, is actually a perfectly balanced card right now. Like, it gives extra fuel to it. Yeah, I love that. It gives extra fuel to a deck that was a bit below the curve, so that's fine. And the last heroic, though, and this is what made me think at one point, like, this came to me like yesterday. Aloyan must be really hard to create balanced cards for. Mm-hmm. I've just realized this. Like, almost every Aloyan card is either terrible or broken in some way. Like, look at Forge Oracle. Like, they tried so hard not to make that effect overpowered, and then it ended up becoming useless. And then there's other cards like Gargoyle was really broken until they literally printed new cards to kill it, and then it became balanced. So,
Gargoyle was strong for a very long time, and I think it was still strong even with the card that... It was still strong in a metagame with a card that said, destroy this creature.
For free.
At any level for free. Like, potentially for free the next time they play it. So, it was like, you can get away with having this in your deck, even if there's a matchup where you basically just can't play it. And that was kind of neat.
I love Gargoyle. I think it's amazing. And I don't think that... we talked about how Aloyan's got some difficulty, making cards for it. It doesn't have as much of a... It feels like it doesn't have as much of a design space as the other factions. I think Stoneblade is going to get there. And as for Forge Oracle, I think that Technosmith wasn't playable in Standard Constructed. No, I don't think it's playable in Unlegendary. It might be playable in Unheroic, but like Forge Oracle is just a worse version of Technosmith in many ways. Just 1/1 at level 1 is pathetic.
Miserable.
It's straight up worse than a Seal of Deepwood level 1. Like, it's absolutely miserable. The way of getting value from a 1/1 is to sack it to a Brood Queen, and this thing ain't Utera, nor is it Necrium.
No, you need to play Necrium, Aloyan with no triggers, and only leveling things like, I don't know, maybe you can level your Killians. Oh wait.
That sounds so good!
You're playing that combo the wrong way around.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you've got a point. Maybe it's really hard to balance it, but I honestly think Forge Oracle could have been a little bit bigger. You know, a three
so, yeah.
a 3-3 at level 1 would have been fine. Like, leveling something isn't that busted of an effect. It doesn't change the math
Okay,
that
so
much.
what do you think of Technosmith?
It used to be
I think
good.
Technosmith,
You used to be good.
Technosmith's a really good card.
Small guys in general, you can't get away with as much because over time, I noticed this actually, over time, the average size of commons and rares has increased. Probably to give draft a bit of extra leverage here or there. Which is nice actually, I'm fine with it. It means that heroics and legendaries aren't like, hey look, I'm dead. Which happened a lot in set 1 and to some extent set 2. But they've got bigger over time, which I'm fine with. And as a result, you can't really get value out of a Technosmith anymore. Like, a good example here is Deep Moss Raptor would be really good in set 1 draft. Like, a 2-2 that immediately becomes a 13-13, which is larger than anything else in the format. Like, that would have been insane as a common, but the format became a lot more about bigger things, like you got Tangle Sprout, you got like Brawler, you got a bunch of really, really cool commons which are not like overpowered in any regard, but they shifted the format a bit. Whereas in set 1 draft, the good underdrops were high attack, low health, so you could sometimes get value over your Technosmith, and if you did, then your opponent was in a really bad position, because Technosmith 9-9, 15-15 was average to slightly above average at the time for
8-8,
commons.
15-15.
Is it 8-8? Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't played Technosmith in a while. But anyway, I just remember it being like average to slightly above average in terms of size, whereas nowadays an 8-8 at level 2 is almost laughable when it comes to commons.
What have you got to say about this, Heck, before I respond?
No, go for it.
Alright, so, like, I think Technosmith is a really well-designed card. In original Alpha, where you were playing the two precons against each other, when it was, like, in Kickstarter phase, all you got to play with was the two original decks.
That was a lot of fun.
That was the best, actually, just quietly. And that, in that format, Technosmith was good. In draft, original set 1, I didn't play it that much, but I understand Technosmith was fine. It was good. It might not have been busted, but it was
almost
I don't
a
think it was
bomb.
busted.
Before set 1, like, it was almost a bomb, actually, I remember that. Like, it was a very high pick.
Okay, sure. So it was really good then, that's fine. But that's still a mark of a well-designed, well-balanced card. I don't have a problem with either of those scenarios. And then you mentioned about Deep Moss Raptor, the 2-2 dinosaur. That thing's fine in current draft, and it was fine in set 2 draft, so I don't have a problem with that either. I honestly don't think the leveling mechanic is that busted that they have to make them 1-1s.
I agree.
You know, make it 3-3. That's fine. It's totally okay. A 3-3 doesn't gain that much value. It's okay.
The only thing is the consistent. If you have a consistent card, it is so tough to balance, and we've seen this over and over. I think we keep seeing
Especially
consistent cards
But-
come up as very, very powerful or completely useless, right? It's that same very tough to balance. I think, as you said with Aloyan, like, I don't think it's just Aloyan. I think they have to work really hard on every single card that they introduce.
Yeah, speaking of balancing cards, isn't there supposed to be an 8th card to 3.1 which disappeared and may or may not be appearing at some point, sometime?
You know, I would love to hear what they're... this is an opportunity for Stoneblade to say, look, here's what happens in the bug testing process. We caught a late bug with this Utera Legendary, and we want to show you guys like how we go about fixing this, and shop it and say like, now it's scheduled for set 4. That kind of thing.
David's just put, we do not speak of it.
I would love that. I think that's a great opportunity.
No, I
for
meant
that.
the dinosaur.
Absolutely. Like, I'm with Hectares on this. I think this is an excellent opportunity for Stoneblade to come out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. You know, this is the bug testing process. Please, I actually just like directly shout out to David in stream. Please tell us what's going on, man. Like, don't be afraid. The community isn't gonna attack you, like witch hunt you or anything like that for saying these things. If you give us more information, we'll be like, yeah, that's good. Give us more information. That's really good.
But I think something... Also, there's just a random question, which is from Nota, which is power creep and solforge. I think This is a weird topic because a lot of people talk about it as some broad sweep thing. You can't really do that because power creep is dependent on format as well. So like I just said that commons and rares seem to be getting better over time in terms of drafting, and the reason for that is probably just because they wanted to reduce the amount of impact your first pick had. So, like, if you got that big, awesome heroic and you just, like, won the draft because you got that crazy bomb, I think they wanted to reduce that a bit, which I'm fine with, and it worked out. But in terms of actual power creep, I don't really think so. I mean, Thundersoar was a 1.1 card, like, and that's still, like, in certain formats. I mean, obviously Brood Queen is running around rampant right now, but in formats without a very, very easy way of killing the O36, like we saw that in AU bots originally, where it was just like, hey look, I'm going to kill you. And that was released in like January, I want to say, 1.1? Earlier? I think maybe earlier. So that's an old card. And some other ones are like Gox. I don't see them outdoing Gox anytime soon. Just things like that is my retort to power creep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna get to experiment with a little bit without the with no alpha constructed.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see.
Power creep is, I think power creep happens in card games more because of card availability and diversity more than anything else. You find that, especially in a card game with Solforge, the power creep exists because you have card combinations happening. So it's the synergies that you're really looking at. If you look at Magic, each individual format of Standard Magic is roughly similar in power level, and each format of Solforge isn't. But that's because we still haven't gotten to the point where you've got a full format of Solforge yet. And once we got to that point of a full Solforge, power level, or an approximately full Solforge power level, they'll start losing sets off the back. At least in their, commonly rotating format, or whatever they end up doing. So I think that we'll continue to see a small amount of power creep as a format for a little while, and then it'll tap out, and then it'll fluctuate in a normal spectrum, and it'll be completely acceptable. And that's how I imagine Stoneblade would balance it, although, of course, I have, no connection to Stoneblade to actually make that claim. I just, think that's probably what would happen. And it sounds sensible to me, so judge me as you will.
Something interesting to think about is that if you look at older, like card games that have been going for a long time, like Magic, there's a lot of cards where if you go into the old formats, as people call them, which is eternal ones where nothing rotates, everything looks broken, but then you realize that most of those cards come from completely different sets because like each set tends to have one ridiculous card that just is like eternal in terms of value. And eventually, like this won't happen anytime soon, but eventually Solforge will probably go into some sort of rotation format when the card pool just gets absolutely absurd. And I guarantee that the most powerful standard is going to be the first one before rotation, because that's when everyone will have the most toys to play with. And then I think the whole notion of power creep will go vastly out the window when eventually, I don't know when it would happen, maybe a year from now when we're like on set 8 or something. Or like over a year from now, maybe 2. But the main point is, once a set rotates out, people will start realizing that maybe those older cards had a lot more weight to them than they thought they did. So the discussion about power creep tends to go out the window rather fast. So that's kind of my 2 cents on that, and that's mostly from experience with Magic and other card games with rotation systems.
Well, I just like that we're talking about Unlegend and Unheroic as formats now. I think it broadens the conversation quite a bit. It does, previously it was you have standard, you have draft, and that's all you have to talk about. Now with a variety of tournament support and sort of scaling in terms of the card pool, we have a lot to talk about every week when it comes to changes to the card pool or changes in popularity of decks, and I think that will continue to increase as these, as the tournaments that challenge players to innovate decks increase as well.
I would highly recommend that they keep Unlegendary around as a format. Like having 3 queues, one for people that don't have that many cards. Like, well, they have cards, but they don't have like legendaries. and then having one for standard and then draft, and they all have some sort of support behind them, would I think broaden the spectrum of players quite a lot.
Yeah.
David just pointed out that they should rotate out set 1 and run it as a weekend warrior. Wait.
They should do the other way around. Only set 1.
Haven't we already done that though? That would be interesting, to be fair, though.
With all the balancing
I don't think I think a good number of players haven't done that.
Return of bots.
That's a good.
The return of bots.
Yeah, like let's see if people with a greater understanding of the game come up with different decks or something like that. I don't think they will. I think there's a lot of old school players still around as well. So I think you'll see bots.
Oh jeez.
But that's okay.
So, yeah, I mean, essentially all this talk of power creep and rotation and stuff, it all depends on what Stoneblade's going to do. And all I'm really hoping for is that Stoneblade will tell us what they're doing. Did you guys chat about the last week, the announcements and stuff like that on Lane 6? I don't actually know who was around.
We usually do.
Yeah. I think Stoneblade had got a lot of feedback about that, that they changed the format for the WCQ a week beforehand. I feel like they probably would learn from that and start announcing things sooner, giving us more time and stuff like that. And hopefully this, if they were going to rotate something out, they'd give us plenty of warning and that kind of thing. It's a pretty big change to the game, and, I have faith that Stoneblade is going to balance it, is going to, play test both standard and on legendary and possibly on heroic as well. I mean, multiple formats, as Hectares just pointed out so eloquently, is a great thing for Solforge. And, I just think that the only thing that Stoneblade needs to do is keep doing exactly what they're doing and just tell us what they're doing, weeks before they do it. Multiple weeks, potentially.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I do think that diversity is always a good thing, and communication is always a better thing. Like, having diversity is nice. I just think at the moment, with the current state of Solforge, I've got a feeling that what's going on at the moment in terms of metagame in general is something which I don't foresee any kind of balancing until set 4. And I think it's going to be a problem which any kind of diversity problems they're going to try and fix at the moment are going to be with new cards. Because I think the weird situations that's happened right now is that they tried the Nerf Hammer and that it kind of sort of didn't work. So I think what's going to happen is that what's going on at the moment in Solforge, we've got 3 formats. They're mostly the same, but we've got 3 formats, and you can focus on 2 of which have got quite a lot more support than the other one, being on Legendary and Standard. But I would say that the next major format change is probably going to be set 4, because what we need to kind of shake this is getting not a Loin and 10 piece, but like incentives for running other faction pairings. Like Bizrak Spite Mage, for example, incentivized a lot of NT when it came out. Things like that.
Yeah.
And that will shake things up a lot.
I would also like for there to be very distinct strategies within faction pairings as well. I mentioned this previously. I don't mean to talk about it every time we have this show, but AU having Flex and having Robots at the same time seems really good. They were distinct enough. One was a tribal with very specific cards that needed to be in there. So you can't, with a tribal requirement or with a very specific kind of requirement, you can't have this. You can't just pull cards from the same colors because they have because they're just good. You have to. You can maybe include 6, 8 of those, but your core of your deck has to be this very specific card pool. And I'm generally against tribal as a give the list to the players kind of thing. But if there's enough of a range that people can work with, they can pick and choose. Like Yetis feels a lot better now with the inclusion of something like
Warstalker is now good now. It's now good now. Yes, good.
I'm saying Hammerfang, Warstoker. Upping the number of choices is somewhat of a step, but it is very tough. I'm not really advocating for tribal because I have to say I don't.
Zombies
I
is
don't.
one I think they got right. There's a lot of options for
Yeah,
which zombies are going to be
zombies.
running right now.
Zombies is maybe a good example because you can pair it with any other faction and sort of experiment a lot with it. I like that idea of experimenting a lot with teching a deck list. So I just would like. I'm just requesting that the metagame be awesome. Can you just please just awesome metagame? Is that too much to ask? I don't know. That's what I want.
I will say that if a Loyan gets screwed over in the next cycle as well, you're going to hear from me about it. Because, like,
Yeah.
a Loyan is my least favorite color, but even I'm sick of this.
That's so funny. You say that 6 months ago, and people are like, "What are you talking about? Bloody gnomes table flip!" Like
Well, that's what
everything
happens when a
changes.
color gets, like, nothing apart from Killian for, like, actual months. And before anyone says Iron Maiden, Scorchmane Dragon is better currently anyway.
There's couple of people in chat, touting the Hydra tribal.
Yeah, we need Hydra
Just-
Tribal. We also need Dinosaur Tribal. I think that exists already.
We need wanderers for every faction, says Eon. That's a good one.
That actually would be a cool one. Also, out of all the Wanderer pairings they had to add, it was a Necrean one, really. So even if I want to do the crazy, like, way out there deck, I still have to play NU. That's like a slap in the face.
To be completely honest, like everyone's haranguing on NU, and I'd like to point out that if Stoneblade thought the metagame was going to look like this, they wouldn't have released the cards. It's just common sense. Like they don't want to have a three months where the format is entirely NU in every format.
It's
they don't
hard
want
to
that.
predict.
That's not
is the problem.
that's very true. I'm not going to disagree with you. Absolutely. But like, I doubt very much it was deliberate.
Oh no, it wasn't deliberate. Like they pushed Brood Queen because like they pushed all the faction pairing stuff. They pushed the Aurotech stuff. They pushed Brood Queen. Like that's what they wanted to do. But I think it was like a bad coincidence where just they got really good allied stuff, and then it turned out that the two better colors because they just got a bunch of extra stuff, which again was just like cool designed cards. But the sum of the parts ended up being a little bit too much, which is very hard to predict. Keep in mind that Stoneblade does not have access to the entire Soulforge player base as a testing ground, besides when it goes live.
We are in beta.
Yeah.
No, but you've got a point. You've got a point.
Yeah, but internal testing is... So, I love even here, Aloyan got Battlebrand. Oh wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of hilarious actually.
I like everything that Hectares has said this stream. The specific faction pairing combinations, having a specific flavor. I really like that idea. And I think they might have actually hit it on the nail with NU, to be honest. NU feels like it should be grow wide, and it is. That's good. It should be NU, should be grow wide. It's got dead things, it's got live things, it's got zombies, it's got things coming back from the dead and coming into play, and all kinds of stuff. That feels like it should be.
If there were 6 lanes.
Well, then this podcast would have to be lane 7, and it would be nowhere near as good, so...
Yeah, we'd have lane 7, which would have an extra syllable in it, which is not cool. And then we'd have, like... I mean, to be fair, tracker decks would have something to do when they have 5 creatures on the board and want to replace something with a tracker. Like, you gotta have the sympathy for the guy hitting you for 40 in the face every turn.
Sympathy for the guy hitting me in the face with for 40 every turn?
Because he
I
doesn't
have no
have
sympathy
that roar, man. He doesn't have that double roar turn when he wants it.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah,
Jeez.
poor, it's like first world tracker problems. Not enough. It's like Brood Queen. Remember that? Not enough space to like put the trigger down.
Yeah, not getting my free token.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Hey,
like
I remember when I was playing gnomes, and I was like, God damn it, I have to replace my gnomes now. Come on, man.
It's like Kitfinity getting annoyed that he has to replace gnomes with gnomes that draw more gnomes. It's like first of all, the funny thing is, just a random thing, since we're kind of closing out the stream at this point, which means if you have any other questions, just put them in chat while we're rushing on about this. If the game did not have a lane limit, then NU would be like the most broken thing ever.
You would never be able to catch up. You would never be able to catch up.
Phytobomb Epidemic is an instant win.
Turn 1 GGD, turn 2 if it's still alive, win the game.
Yeah,
Well,
that's actually true.
Your opponent would have to be on Dreadbolt.
No, you just need like.
No, actually that
Epidemic
would be the only
Dreadbolt.
thing. If you kept it alive, you would win the game because you would hit the battle button and win.
Yeah. Or, no, just Phytobomb would kill him if you didn't have a lane limit. Like Phytobomb Epidemic was like beyond 100 damage.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean.
This is
Well,
when
you-
they play Group Meal.
You couldn't Phytobomb though. You couldn't have Phytobomb as a card.
That is true. Scatter the seeds. Oh wait, no. What could we do here for some crazy stuff? No, I mean to be honest, if there was no lane limit, then I'd just be like playing Dizzy and Sludge decks with NU.
Well, here's the thing. If there was no lane limit, there wouldn't be lanes, so you wouldn't be having
That's-
combat lanes.
No, I think the funniest one would be two chickens trying to like outrun each other, trying to get that last bit of damage in.
We would be talking
What
about
is-
a very, very funny, very not so serious game.
Literally in
It-
the background, you just got da 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 da.
It would have to be like Solforge Minecraft, baby. Like,
What?
it would have to be a hybrid.
What?
You would be, I don't know.
No,
Let's put
no,
some
no.
portals in there
What
too.
would happen is you get like a guy playing chicken, and you got the Lysian shards as well. He's also playing like aerial surges, fervent assaults, like trying to add more to that mobility number, so you can never catch the chicken.
Well, here's
What-
I mean, here's a practical outcome of this conversation. Let's have a mechanic that allows teleportation from target lane to whatever lane you feel like.
I thought that's what Dizzy. I thought that's
Ooh.
what Varna's pack did when it brought back Direhounds.
Well, I mean, to some extent, you're on the right track. You're getting control of where something goes, but that's spending a card to do
Isn't
it.
that just mobility though? Like mobility 4 is basically just teleport.
Right?
No.
Basically mobility 3. No, 4. Yeah, you would need it from 1 to 5.
Yeah.
But mobility
No,
4
no.
is extremely rare.
Chicken.
And it's only on the chicken. Also, mobility is not good enough. As we've seen, Grimgorn Doomrider and like Hammerfang and Stormbringer, those cards have more mobility than mobility. So
That's true.
mobility needs a buff.
Oh,
Please.
if there
Plus,
were no
you could-
lanes, imagine trying to catch a Hammerfang.
It becomes my best card.
Well, Hammerfang would basically say, cannot be blocked.
It would just no. It would have to have an animation to it where it just keeps moving out of the way. Like you can't just say can't be blocked, man. It has to like move out of the way. You need to have those ridiculous. Like you could have like the broken lotus thing. You know when you lotus in front of one with fervent assault and just kills them over and over and over again. You just see like the board zooming out as just the infinite lotuses.
Well, yeah.
But I've actually done that to someone, by the way, unintentionally, and I crashed the game.
Oh.
I put
Awkward.
fervent assault on a Hammerfang in draft. It was a good draft. And my
We have a
opponent was
question.
like Lotus, and the game crashed.
What are you playing in standard constructed right now?
Brood Queen.
Brood Queen.
Does anyone else have
I-
response besides Brood Queen?
I have been playing a bunch of different things, but mainly I've been playing Brood Queen. I have actually spent a bunch of time playing Lawyer and Tempest Mobility, because mobility's tons of fun, and it posts decent results, but I don't like bleeding tickets too much.
You
so.
sounded so disappointed when you said that.
Yeah.
So I'm not really disappointed because the last time I played standard constructed, it was in the Tuesday night fights, and I won it with Brood Queen.
Oh my god.
And I came very close, or I was very concerned about losing to an NT brew from Kaitiri, and I think Kaitiri had the stronger deck, honestly.
Was it running Brood Queen for value?
It was not running Brood Queen for value, to the best of my knowledge. I don't think the deck lists were released. I believe it was getting good value from what it was doing to
Was
the
this
point.
Was this on the unofficial ladder, by the way?
No, Tuesday Night Fights was run on Challenge. I think it was suggested that they considered the ladder for future.
Yeah, because then you get deck lists is the main thing.
But you're all shameful. We're shameful for running Brood Queen. I don't know.
Sorry,
Brood Queen.
I'm addicted to winning games.
I prefer to win right now, especially when I turn my $5 into a bigger prize with that selection. I think that was a good metagame call. What can I say?
May not have a 4 and a 0 next to it.
But
So
it's true. It's true. Like experimenting has its place, but winning also has its place. And when you're in a format that seems to be not solved, but majority of the time you're going to be in a stronger position if you're running BQ. I would say that you.
Dead on Board had it as a spoiler. I remember this.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that was always funny. Like, I mean, they spoiled it, but I do find it just kind of funny how Brood Queen seems to have. It's an easier way of saying Dizzian, because that's what the deck really is. Like, people either say NU or Brood Queen, and they mostly say Brood Queen because it's like maybe you're not running Brood Queen somehow. I don't know, but that reminds me, I was opening a bunch of packs recently. I said we'll start closing out the stream, but I decided I had like 500,000 silver, so I was like, all right, let's just buy a bunch of basic packs. I got 2 Nephraxes, 2 Doom Riders, a Rage of Kardras, 2 Gargoyles, a Gox, a Gnome, and give me a second, I'm just gonna open the notepad.
Where's my
What?
my notepad? Where's my notepad here? Here you go. 94% jelly. It's gonna go to 100% now.
It's the kind of thing where I disenchanted a lot of them, and I immediately bought a bunch of other ones, and I got some other good stuff as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good run.
Maybe like the pack rate has. Yeah, I've got the list here. I also got my Tomb Pillagers. It took me 270,000 silver worth of packs to get 2 Tomb Pillagers. Frigging like.
I have 0 Tomb Pillagers.
I finally got my 3. It's been so long. On top of that, by the way, I ended up getting 4 Drixes.
Wow.
4 Drix?
Yes, it was one of the most insane openings. The funny thing was, I just did it on a whim because I couldn't play the game on the day, and I was thinking, is there anything I really want to craft? Not particularly. So I just went and did that, then scrapped everything, and then got play sets of a bunch of stuff I was missing. Mostly from set 1 and Forgeborn, actually, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
So I had a
happened
good
to me
week
as well.
with that.
Seeing as we're closing up the stream, can I just plug my 24-hour thing again?
Go for it.
Yeah, so for those of you who are unaware, I am streaming for 24 hours. I'm going to be streaming Solforge. It's going to be all day on Wednesday the 15th in PDT time. So I'll be streaming from 00 on the 15th, Wednesday PDT, through to 2400 Wednesday the 15th PDT. I'll post that in chat as well. Feel free to come along and check it out. I'm going to be making all the misplays, drinking all the caffeine. It'll be a shit fun time. So
And
it'll
if
be great,
you
guys.
miss it because of your time zone, then you need to figure out how days work.
Yeah. 24 hours worth. And if you miss it, it's on you, baby. Also, we have another question in chat. The solforgegame.com are only posting win percentages once every other week as opposed to every week effective playstyle. It doesn't affect mine, not a meth addict, but that is mainly because I don't really care if I'm on the leaderboard or not. I play Solforge for fun, and I compete when I can, but the leaderboard isn't where I want to win. I want to win tournaments. That's my chosen area. But what about you two?
I mean, I like gloating from time to time whenever I get a good win percentage, but that's about it. If I have weird moments where you know what, let's do some ridiculous grinding, and then the next week I'm just like, nah. I have weird fluxes in that regard.
I play, if I'm going to target a win rate or something like that, I play with the win rate in mind, but I don't know if they publish, I'm not going to guess as to whether they publish it or not. I'm going to play as though they're publishing it. I guess that's the only thing. So I guess, I think if they published it every week, that's better, and then I can make the decision whether to go for a win rate that week or not.
As opposed to the weekly
Easier.
win rates, which sometimes come out, but sometimes sleep in.
Well, that's the question. So
That's fair enough.
I think definitely publish those every week. If you can have the stats automatically generated and sent to your email address so that you're reminded to publish them, or I don't know what it is. If it's an intentional decision, explain why it's intentional. Maybe for example, not a mathematics question, uh, does it affect your playstyle? Maybe it affects some players' playstyle. Maybe some people don't want their win rate or um, their number of wins tracked every week. Maybe Technonaut is tired of being at the top of the leaderboards every week. So
Like, it's become a Solforge meme at this point.
yeah, exactly.
It
And
kind of is, yeah.
I don't know. So I would prefer that they had it up every week.
Yeah, before we close out, just a reminder, Unheroic Showdown in an hour. So if you want to go ahead and take part in the Unheroic format, which I'm sure is very, very nice right now, go on to soulforgeladder.com, go to upcoming tournaments, and go ahead and sign up for the tournament that will be running in just over an hour from now. There will be 2 gold codes handed out to both the winner and also someone who stays for the entire Swiss. So by all means, go check that out. But anyway, anything else from you two before we close out?
That's it.
Just the Unheroic Showdown's awesome. Thank you, Jotto, for running it. You two are great. Thanks for having me back on. I hope you guys liked me coming back on the show. I like being here. So all we've got to do is we've got to just convince Jotto and Hectares that I've got to stay, right? Come on! No, it's fine. No, I got nothing more. Just
I can
YOLO
safely
troll.
say that you are going to be the most common third person, that's for sure.
Yes!
So stay
I'm most
tuned,
common.
guys. And also, by the way, I know we keep starting at random times. We did say it would be every Friday. Didn't necessarily say it from particular. The main reason is because schedules change every week, and we're doing it over time zones as well. So this week I wanted to start later, but I'm running on Heroic Showdown, so I can't. And I wanted to do that on Saturday when I scheduled it like 3 weeks ago. But then when I was talking to David about getting codes for like price support, he was like, we have a World Qualifier on that day. So I had to randomly move it back, and then next week is KO Cup. So that's basically why we started 2 hours earlier than normal this week. But the VOD will be on Twitch, so you can go ahead and check that out if you would like. But anyway, thanks all for watching. Go ahead and hit the follow button below if you want to catch this particular stream or any mostly coverage that I'm going to be doing, because I don't see myself streaming regularly that much, since I usually stream when no one else is, because there's sometimes this weird like short circuit in the coverage thing for Solforge. So if no one else is streaming, I probably will. But apart from that, I'll just be doing Lane 6 and sort of coverage on any events people ask me to do and things like that. But anyway, so as for this week, this is Jotto, Coxatrice, and Hectares. You see the wave of shame here. Signing off for the week.